Today, inshallah, we're going to demonstrate a Islamic funeral process, something that we should all get familiar with because we're all going to go through this. And if we don't go through it ourselves now, one of our family members will go through it soon. So the boys are bringing up, subhanAllah, that coffin was actually just used a couple of hours ago. It's still in the car from when we came back to the mosque at 5 o'clock. So it's the real deal. Put it at the front? Yeah. Jazakallah khair, bro. I feel bad, I'm breathing heavy. Alright, bismillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Jazakallah khair, brothers and sisters, for having me here today at your center. Allahumma barik, beautiful gathering, especially on a Friday night, a blessed day, and inshallah a blessed night. My brothers, today, subhanAllah, we've had a long day. We've been going from 7 a.m. We've had a few funerals today already, but we've committed, and so we're here. SubhanAllah, my brothers and sisters, kullu nafsin dha'ikatul maut, every soul shall taste death. And it's a promise by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that every single one of us will drink from the cup of death. And just this week, from Sunday, I think we're on number 14 or 15. So from Sunday to today, I think we've buried 14 or 15 people and about 4 babies under the age of 5. So nobody's immune to it. So no one's promised to see Ramadan or next year or whatever. So subhanAllah, death is truly the destroyer of pleasure. Hadimul lizzat, as the Prophet ﷺ taught us. Because, subhanAllah, the stories we hear every day are amazing. Even today, before I start, the brother we buried yesterday and the brother we buried today were best friends. And subhanAllah, the brother that died yesterday afternoon was asking about his best friend who got buried yesterday afternoon. 2 days ago, he rang the son. He said, "How's your dad doing? I want to come and see him." He died 2 days ago. The other brother died yesterday afternoon. Today, they actually got buried next to each other, right next door to the graves to each other. SubhanAllah, look at that. They loved each other in the world, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put them in the graves next to each other. And that's just today what we've seen. Well, Rabbi, subhanAllah, there's a process with death, especially here in Australia. It's not as simple as when we're overseas, where someone dies, just like you've seen in Hajj, over 1,000 people passed away. They were basically buried in their ihram clothes. No washing, no nothing, just buried in their ihram, straight to the baqiyah, because they died in a state of ihram. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us a blessed ending like that. But for us general people, how it happens here, there's 2 processes, all right? There's the one who dies suddenly, so murders, accidents, you leave today, you have a car accident, you die. People that drop dead for no reason, like we've had about 3 of them this week, young guys who went to sleep and never woke up. These kind of deaths, they become police investigations. So they go to the coroner. They're in Litcombe and they deal with all the suspicious deaths in New South Wales. So what they'll do is they'll pick you up and your family can't do anything about it. They'll take you to their coronial inquest and you'll be put in a processing line, and probably 24 hours you'll get processed, and now the people can ask about you, and then they'll go through a process where they'll either scan you or open you up to further investigate to find out what caused your death. And most of the time they say unknown reasons because they don't even know. But we'll talk about the one who is blessed with a ending where he actually he's preparing for death. The one who gets sick, like many of the people these days, cancers, these kind of things. That is more of a blessed ending in our days. Why? Because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants you that a sickness that you can say goodbye, you can ask for forgiveness, you can ask for mercy, you can tie the odds bits that you disunited while you were living, then that is a blessed ending. The one who dies suddenly is not a blessed ending, because you've left unfinished business. So every single person at that cemetery has unfinished business. Every single person at that cemetery had something to do the next day. But subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deemed their date of death on that day. So what happens basically if someone is in, so right now today I'm waiting for a phone call from a friend of mine. His dad's basically, he's starting to hallucinate. He's looking in the corner and he's giving salams to something in the corner. No one can see it, and Allah alam, Allah knows alim al-ghaib. But he's on his last breaths. He probably died tonight or tomorrow. This is how close he is. So if that was to happen, he'd call us, we'll go pick him up straight away. We'd get his paperwork done, called a death certificate. So it's a doctor signs off what caused his death. So a known disease, cancer, leukemia, heart failure, something along those lines. And we'd bring him back. It doesn't matter if it was 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 5 in the morning, death comes at any time. And subhanAllah, it seems to come more at night than it does in the day. And we'd pick him up, we'd bring him back to the funeral parlor, to the mosque, and that's where the process starts. At that stage there, my brothers and sisters, you're put into a cool room and your preparations begin. When we say preparations, meaning the booking of your grave, the booking of which cemetery your family decides to put you in, and all the outside stuff that nobody even considers when you're alive. Because all these are choices have to be made. And then after that, they've got to deal with all the stuff that you left when you left the world. But we're going to deal with now you've passed away, and a funeral's booked, and the message goes out to the people, such and such has passed away. And for that little moment, you become popular. Everyone's talking about you. Yeah, did you hear he passed away? Yeah, did you hear? And it circulates everywhere. All right? You're on everyone's tongue now. You're Mr. Popular. But it's going to be short-lived. Because the next day, if your wash is at 9 or 10 o'clock, that's when everyone comes. Usually, if your wash is at 10 o'clock in the morning, at 9:30 there's not one person there. They all come at 10 and 10:30. Yani show you that people are reluctant to even come. They come because it's like, I have to come. And only the real close ones are the ones that are there and feeling with you. So subhanAllah, we bring the body, and we're going to show you a demonstration. Abdul, you want to get the, where's Muhammad? So boys, the body will always come in a body bag, all right? Because for health reasons in Australia, they have to be in a plastic lining and a body bag. It doesn't matter who you are, you can't refuse it unless you die at home. You'll come in the blanket that you were wearing. So my brothers, we take him out of the body bag, and there's a lot of different sized body bags. There's body bags that are this big for kids, babies. And a couple of months ago, we had a guy that was about 245 kilos. He was like up here, and there was a body bag to fit him. And we actually lifted him up by crane. So they'll make a body bag to fit you. So don't worry, you'll get a body bag. So what we do is, we pull the body bag off, and we're going to pretend this is the washing table. Over here is the sink. Under you is a drain, so that anything comes out of you goes into the drain. And what we'll do is we're going to take off the kafan, because this is kind of the final part, and we're going to show you how the process is. And I'll explain the kafan to you, because this kafan, what you see here, has a very important, plays a big important part in the Islamic funeral process, because we all wear the same. Nobody has a different color or a different style. So my brothers and sisters, the most important thing for a deceased is to cover their awrah. All right? Sitra. When we're alive, we cover our awrah, and when we're dead, it's still covered. Nobody sees the awrah, not even the washers. All right? Because the Prophet ﷺ said to cover and protect your deceased. In other words, don't break their bones, don't mutilate them. So that's why sending overseas shouldn't be done. Because to send the body overseas means it needs to be cut in the neck, in the ribs, and in the thigh. And the cuts are about that big. And they're injected with a special dye that stops the body, embalms it, stops it from going off for 2, 3, 4 weeks. depending how much they want to keep you to get to your destination. All that is forbidden in our religion. It shouldn't be practiced. Where you die, you're buried. The Prophet ﷺ said, bury them in the closest Islamic cemetery. Why Islamic? Because the Prophet ﷺ told us that the punishment of the grave can harm the believer. So I had a sister ring me the other day who said her dad wants to be buried on top of his dad. His dad died in the early 80s. So in the early 80s, we used to bury in a place called the Russian Orthodox section in Rookwood Cemetery. And that place there was before we were allowed to bury without a coffin. So it was pre-85, before a lot of you guys were born. And subhanAllah, I said to her sister, the problem is that area is not Muslim. So first of all, it's not Muslim. And second of all, he's going to be in a coffin, which is not the Islamic way. And she said, but that's his wishes. I said, but in those cases, those wishes shouldn't be followed through. We have the right to not follow those wishes through because it actually harms the deceased. Because the Prophet ﷺ told us the punishment of the non-believers can harm the believers if they're in the same graves. You can be harmed by your neighbors just like you're harmed in the world by your neighbor. That's why the option is to go to the closest Islamic grave, and the janazah prayer is a fard kafaya. It's kafaya meaning it has to be performed. Has to be performed by one person at least for that deceased. And subhanAllah, we get a lot of people die. Like I think this week we had one brother die. He got buried, was it yesterday? John Gregory. So he died 2 days ago. And the nursing home rang us and said to us, we have a brother here. He's written he's Muslim, but he has no family at all. So they rang Lakemba, being the primary number, and they said, would you take care of him, or do you want us to cremate him? Astaghfirullah, we will never let our Muslim brother get cremated. We're not there to judge his heart. We know he's Muslim, and that's it. Even though his name was John Gregory something, we got him, we washed him yesterday, and subhanAllah, there was another 2 funerals yesterday. So the people at the first funeral prayed for him. And we took him and buried him in a destitute grave, meaning a grave that is given to him. And I think Abdul and one other Bosnian brother went with him, and that was it. So these are the kind of funerals for the ones that have nobody. And even though they have nobody, subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always sends somebody to perform the janazah for them. So we performed the janazah, it was about 8 of us, and we left. So we get a lot of people that die. I had a guy die in a factory. They found him living in a factory. I think he'd been dead for about 3 months. So he was fully decomposed. You still got to perform the janazah prayer. Even though when that bag, that body bag that you saw, when we lifted it, it was like, you see in Gaza how the guy was lifting the body in bags? It was exactly the same. The bodies were just, it was decomposed. It was just meat and all in pieces. You still got to do the janazah prayer. It's a fard kafaya. So brothers, when the body is on the wash table, the first thing we have to do is take the clothes off. So another thing, my brothers and sisters, don't get too caught up in brand names. Don't get too caught up in images and these clothes that we all try to spend more than we have to. Because what we mostly do all the time is we don't take the clothes off them, we cut them off them. All right? Now today, subhanAllah, the brother came and he actually had his mashaya on and his bijama, his jacket and everything. And I've never had a guy come to me wearing his mashaya still. Normally it comes off when they die. And I thought to myself, he put those thongs on. He was going somewhere when he dropped dead. So my brothers and sisters, yani, don't assume you're going to get to your destination. So his clothes were all cut off like every other person. And sometimes we cut off brand names, expensive names, but they got no use. You even tell the family you want them, they go, no, throw them in the bin. And just look at what we're worth, nothing. It's pity. Clothes are taken off, and if you go to the coroner, your clothes are already, you're naked. At the coroner, you're naked. They don't dress you in the coroner. They put a bit of cotton wool on your hold that's it. So it's very sad, one of our sisters, when they die in these circumstances, that they get exposed to the non-Muslims in the coroner. And that can't be stopped. This is the law we live in. So my brothers, subhanAllah, we always ask for Allah to give us a blessed ending. That's why it's so important to have a blessed ending. These are all the blessings of a good ending. You know, the brother died yesterday. He died at 8:30 in the morning. He was buried at 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock, he was still hot when we washed him. Allah gave him a blessed ending. Then sometimes you get brothers that takes a week before they're buried. The family wants to make arrangements. People come from overseas. It's all wrong. Death doesn't wait for anyone. And the deceased needs to be buried. It's dignity. So brothers, subhanAllah, the clothes are all ripped off. Under the head, normally we put a headpiece. Because another thing too, when the soul, subhanAllah, when the soul is getting ripped out of us, it starts down here in the toes. And you'll see every single deceased, his legs are like this. See how these are up? They're like that. Every single deceased, the pulls. And sometimes their toes are each twisted. It's like they've been buckled. That's how hard they push. And it's going to happen to all of us when the soul comes out. And as the soul comes out, the body starts to go cold, comes up until here, the ghalghale. This is the part, the taraki. This is the final ending, my brothers, when the soul gets to here. So what happens here, my brothers and sisters, is subhanAllah, the body pulls. And a lot of people, when they die, their neck is pushed up. So here, there's a gap. It's like it's up here. And when that happens, we have to try to massage it back into place. Or we use a headboard to hold them. The brother yesterday, when we took him out of the bag, another brother, subhanAllah, another revert brother, his eyes were open and they were looking up. And he was an Aussie. He had big blue eyes. And they were looking straight up like that. And subhanAllah, I told the brothers around me, look, as the Prophet ﷺ told us, the eyes follow the soul. And he was following his soul because your soul's going to exit and your eyes follow it. So we obviously close the eyes for dignity. And the first thing we do, my brothers and sisters, once the clothes are off, we got a handheld hose and we use warm water. When we wash, warm water. Again, the deceased can feel its dignity. We don't use cold water, we don't use hot, we use warm water, just like you want for yourself. And we'll make intention first, so intention to perform ghusl, wash, and we say the person's name, we do it in our heart, and we wet the whole body. And sometimes, my brothers and sisters, unfortunately, death is not pretty sometimes. People will be eating and they die. Where's that food? Sitting everywhere here. Has to come out. Questions after, brother. Yeah. Yeah. I was crying for myself. But we'll answer questions later, inshallah. Allah barik fiqh. Allah yahfazkun. SubhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ said, look at the room and look at the youngest person in the room. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them a full term, we will all be in the hereafter. So the hereafter begins the minute you pass away and you enter the grave. May Allah preserve our young generations asking these questions. So death can come at any time, brothers. A lot of people are eating when they die. A lot of people, the ambulance comes and they'll do everything possible to give you that last chance to live. They'll throw an adrenaline in your your shins here, a needle this big. They punch it into your shin. We pull it back out. They'll put hoses down your throat. They'll put cannulas in you, needles. If the heart rate stops, that's it. You know what they do? They just pack everything up, throw the gloves, and they walk off. And they write a certificate, verification of death. I'll show you what it looks like. And that's it. They've done what they can on you, and they walk away. Yani it's over. When the body comes to us, we have to take all that off it. Body doesn't come nice and all that stuff. You have to pull everything out. You have to take the needles out. You have to stop the bleeding. You have to pull this thing out with a plier. Sometimes people have colostrum bags, their bladder operations. You have to pull that off. They're on dialysis. You have to close it all off so the blood doesn't keep coming out. Many different ways. But the point is, we try to bring them back as much as possible to as simple as possible to being back to normal, inshallah. And at the end of the day, it's the body. The body will decompose. The soul is with Allah. And brothers, once we clean everything and we wet the body, the first thing we do is all of us have to eat. We're humans. What you eat today will come out tomorrow. And that's why, my brothers and sisters, it's very important to practice the sunnah of the Prophet and just eat 1/3. Because overeating is not good. Because if you were to die and you had overeaten, it's not a pretty sight. That food will come out. Because what we do here is we split the legs like that. We put water on the body and we push the stomach. And depending how big the stomach is, depends how much pressure you have to put in. And why do we do that? So that whatever's sitting in the intestines comes out. Because if it doesn't come out now, it's going to come out as you get buried. And the whole reason we perform a wash is for the purity. Because our religion is pure. We work on purity. So once sometimes you have to work really hard to clean the stomach. Sometimes the person's died of cancer and there's actually no stomach. There's just a bit of liquid that comes out from the medicines. But at the end of the day, you have to clean everything you can, and you'll clean everything from the bottom. And you got to do what you got to do, as they say. Once we've cleaned as much as we possibly can, the washing begins. And the washing begins by right side, left side. And usually what I like doing is I like to get the families involved. If your father dies, you wash him. You know, your mother dies, the daughter washes. Your son dies, you wash him. This is part of our religion. Strengthens our iman. Don't worry, the dead's not going to hurt you. And it prepares you for when your day comes. Because this is an example for us, the living. So we'll start washing from the face, the nose, the mouth. Sometimes you've got to pull the tongue back in. And then you wash the hands, underarms, all the way to the feet, between the toes. Many times we have to cut their nails for dignity. Some people, subhanAllah, they get neglected. And again, my brothers and sisters, don't neglect your parents when they get to old age. Because you should groom them and make them feel respectable. Because there's nothing worse than when I sit there cutting nails that long for a father and the son puts his head down because he didn't do it himself. So my brothers and sisters, give them the dignity. When they're old and they're sick, they can't bend, they can't do these actions. This is what we as Muslims have to do. And then my brothers and sisters, the body is turned sideways like this, and the aura is always covered. And the back is washed. And the washing, the Prophet ﷺ taught us, do it in odd numbers. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Now, alhamdulillah, the time we live in now, 3 washes is plenty. The olden days, people were desert dwellers, were badus, a lot of dust, a lot of dirt, so they needed more wash. Now people are very hygienic. 3 washes is usually sufficient. And the first wash consists of, the first wash in the water, we put the sidr, the lotus, crushed lotus. And the Prophet ﷺ said, use this because it makes soap. So this, it's in the bag. It's in the box. So this sidr here looks like this. There's no smell to it. What it is, you know the lotus tree, the lotus bark, you crush it, and when that adds to water, that makes like soap. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ used to teach us to wash with, because they didn't have soap. They didn't have palm olive and all these soaps. The first wash is done with the sidr, and the second wash is done with my favorite smell, kamfur. Kamfur is, subhanAllah, kamfur is preserves the body. Pass this around, let them smell it. We add that on the second wash, because the Prophet ﷺ said, at the time of burial, angels are present. And the angels come to beautiful smells. And this is obviously if you're a good soul. If you're not a good soul, I don't care if you put the best perfume in the world, ain't going to be clean. So the kamfur here preserves the body. And back in the olden days, in the Prophet's day, and that, there was no air conditioning. There was nothing to keep the body cool. So the hot heat, 45, 50 degrees, and outside even hotter, and out in the desert when they buried, the body would smell. And this was dignity. These things are all to dignify the deceased, the body. Because this whole process is about dignity. It's not a ritual, it's dignity, because ikram al-mayyit. And ikram al-mayyit is to bury him. And this is the process that the Prophet ﷺ taught us. So the kamfur is used as a second wash. It's added to the water. And the last wash is done with straight water. And the last thing we do is we add a bit of zamzam water in one of these tubs. And once we've established that he's clean, and look, something that has to be done sometimes is wherever we have holes in our bodies have to be plugged up. Meaning, The back has to be plugged up with cotton. Our noses, our ears, all get plugged up, so nothing leaks out again. And then a wudu is performed. And subhanAllah, still got water in it. So the wudu is done exactly like the way you do wudu when you're alive. The mouth, the nose, everything, between the toes. Once the wudu is done and the wash is finished, the body is dried, and we use, put that last, and we use an air dryer, and we use towels. The body is dried up, so you're dried up, both sides. And now, subhanAllah, you get moved from the washing table to the shroud table. We'll say this is the shroud table now. And once you're on that table, we use like a perfume. This is especially from Makkah. It's actually the main smell they use on the deceased in Makkah, Medina, when they wash the deceased in the Baqiyah. Pass around, let them smell it. That's the smell they use on anyone who dies over there. That's the smell they all get usually. So we look, there's different narrations where to put it. Some say put on every joint that touches the prayer area. As long as you put it on. You should put attar. You should put attar on your deceased for the nice smell. And then now we're ready to shroud. And subhanAllah, we're almost on the last stage before you enter the grave. And the shrouding, my brothers and sisters, is this is the most critical point of the whole funeral. And if you've seen the shroud, it consists of 3 main pieces and 2 small pieces. The small ones are for the awrat, and the big ones are to close you up. And the women have 7 pieces because they have more awrah. All right. So we get 5. The men get 5. So the first thing we do is we close the awrah area like this. We pull the old towel out. And my brothers and sisters, the hands, the arms for the deceased, there's 2 narrations. They can be placed side by side, or they can be placed in a prayer position. And this is subject to the body being moved. Before we start washing, we loosen the body up. Because some people, the body calcifies and it goes like a rock. You can't move it. And some people, it stays very soft. Now when it hardens up, you got to slowly bring it forward and slowly bring it back and work it till it loosens up again. Just like we are now. But some people have deformities in their bodies and they can't be moved. The shoulders and that are, subhanAllah, they've got deformities. So the arms will stay sideways. And other people have very big stomachs. That's why I go back to food again. You can't put their arms over their stomach. Because then when you put them in the grave, you can't close the grave. They're going to protrude over it. So both options are, you do whatever works for that deceased. This is the skirt, and this is the shirt. And I'll this is your final clothing. Look how thin it is. Look at that. See how it rips? You can rip it with your teeth. You can actually rip it if you just tear it, it'll rip. This is all we go with. This is how basic it is. Yani these wardrobes we have at home and we're proud of, don't even look at them, because I'll tell you something right now and ponder about this. Your kafan, your last dress, your last attire that you're going to leave the earth with is sitting in a funeral parlor somewhere in the world, or it's in the marketplace ready to be sold to the funeral parlor. Because every roll is about 100 meters. And if today I cut the kafan and the guy was a multi-millionaire, and tomorrow I cut the kafan for a guy who had nobody, like we had yesterday, a person that had no family, it comes from the same length. It's whoever's next. That's Islam level. There's no, he's rich, let's make a special kafan. He's not rich, give him whatever, less pieces, nah. One fits all. And that's what's beautiful about Islam, subhanAllah. Because I'll point something out to you. Once these are on, my brothers, subhanAllah, it looks very similar to when you're at Hajj now. And the next thing to go over now is, this is the part now, the final part where you're going to be covered up. And the Prophet ﷺ, he taught us that when you shroud in the best shroud possible. In other words, make it neat. And normally when we do it very tight, so the body compacts in. Because the Prophet said this, because he said the believers visit each other in the graves. In Barzakh, we visit each other. Inshallah, we'll all be in Barzakh. So he said, dress them in the best of shrouds, subhanAllah. SubhanAllah, everything the Prophet said is got hikmah. And I'll point something out to you is once you're shrouded like this, the ropes here, your arms are tied up like that. Your knees are tied up. Knees will be here. And your feet are tied up. And they're done in a shoelace. Because in the grave, when you're lowered and put on your right side, facing the Kaaba, these straps all get taken off. Why? Because the body naturally expands. Some of you have been to the cemetery for funerals, and you see when we put the slabs on, they put a piece of timber over the slab. You've seen it, right, some of you? All right, you know what that timber's for? So the body doesn't explode. Because the body will expand so much that it will pop those concrete up. Because on top of it is an empty layer. So they explode and they've seen the concrete pop. So that timber holds it in. That's why they put them in. So the body, subhanAllah, illa man rahimahullah, only the one that Allah preserves. Inshallah, this won't happen. But this is generally the concept or the science in the human body, what happens to it. So these pieces are all taken off. The covering of the uncovering of the face, this is, I don't know, this is a cultural thing. They say Umar ibn Khattab used to do it a lot because he wanted people to see the people alive, that, you know how we go to a cemetery, we always look down to see that deceased and remember ourselves. That's the reason why. That he was once amongst us. He once prayed next to us. He once went to the Eid with us. He was in our community, and look where he is today. Be accountable because you're going to be next. That's why they do that. SubhanAllah, my brothers and sisters, when we have 3-4 bodies at the same time, and they're all on a table like this, and you see this in Makkah and Medina during the Hajj time, that all the bodies are laid like that. Nobody even knows who their family member is anymore. No one can even tell. I've had people stand at the wrong body and say, I'll say, brother, that's not your father. Your father's that one there. Because we all look the same. We're all level. We all got white on, and we're all dead bodies. My brothers and sisters, don't take too much pride in thinking you're something special. Because after this stage here comes the hereafter stage. And from here, depending on how much time we have in the day with the bookings of graves and that, they may pray on you the janazah in the mosque, or like the other day, yesterday, the brother died 8:30 and was buried at 11, and that was the only time available. We prayed at the cemetery. Sheikh Kamal followed us to the cemetery and we prayed up there. And subhanAllah, it all comes down to time, and many people missed it. That's how it works. Death doesn't wait for anyone. So whether they pray for you at the mosque or they pray for you at the cemetery, the janazah, the prayer will get done. The grave is waiting for you. Men will jump in the grave, and men bury the deceased, not women. And you'll be passed amongst, first of all, you're carried on the shoulders of the men. You'll put on the ground just like that, and you're passed out of the coffin to the people in the grave. And they'll usually bring you sideways down, and if the Qibla was this way, you'd be buried like this. Okay? And that's it, my brothers and sisters. That's our final resting place on the earth for our bodies. And the grave, as the Prophet ﷺ told us, that the grave is the most horrific sight a human being can see, because it's the reality. It's either a pit from the pits of hell, or a rawdah from the Jannah, a piece of the paradise. But that is all determined on our deeds and actions. Because as the Prophet ﷺ taught us, 3 things follow the deceased. Every single funeral, Muslim, non-Muslim, those 3 things will follow the deceased. His family, his wealth, and his deeds. Everyone. Your family is your kids, your wife, not your wife, sorry, your kids, your friends, your brothers, sister, your brothers. They will follow you to the cemetery, but then they'll leave you and go. Your wealth, you know, the other day I had a doctor. Subhanallah, we washed him, and his son's also a doctor, the whole family are doctors. And when we jumped in the grave, he jumped in with me to bury his dad. And we got out, we backfilled, and he hugged me. And I said, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on your dad and forgive him. And he just looked at me like this. He goes, I thought my dad's going to go back home with me. I said, what would you say that for? He said, I came in his car, and he pointed and showed me his dad's car at the cemetery. He goes, I drove his car here. He goes, I realized now he's not coming back with me. This is one fine example of your wealth going back, because that car was his wealth in the world. Only your actions and your deeds will stay in the grave. Good or bad, they'll be with you in the grave. Inshallah, there is more good than bad. And that's all our currency is in the grave. Now, brothers and sisters, subhanAllah, once you're put into that grave, and the people, you know how the Prophet ﷺ taught us to throw 3 handfuls of dirt towards the head. You know, from the dirt we are created, to the dirt we shall return, and from the dirt we shall be resurrected. I used to think to myself, why do we do that? Because they do it in a lot of religions, a lot of different religions, the Christians, from dust to dust, all that. And then you find out, subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ told us to do this for one reason. It's for us, the living. When you grab that dirt in your hand and you throw it into the grave, you're going to have dust left on your hands. Feel that dust. Allah, feel that dust. Because you're going back into it. Because that dust makes you swallow your pride. You know, in the world, anyone that grabs dirt is like, what are you doing, man? Dirt, it makes you dirty. And anyone who throws dirt on their mum or dad or someone is classed as disrespectful. But the Prophet ﷺ said, throw dirt on the grave. You're throwing it to your mum, your dad, your sister, where it's respect. Because it all changes, because there is nothing called pride or arrogance in the grave. And that's the reality of our situation in this world, that everything is temporary, including our bodies. The body you're given is just a vessel to carry your soul. Your soul, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut, every soul shall taste death. He didn't say to us, kullu nafsin tamut. If that was the case, then we die. But taste. Will our taste be sweet? Or will our taste be bitter and sour? And that's only going to be determined the moment the angels descend to you. If the angels in white with shroud from Jannah and perfume from Jannah, and they greet you, then know that inshallah everything is good after that. Because your soul will come out like a drop of water. And the ones, I don't even want to talk about the other ones, because you just imagine the worst. That's why, my brothers and sisters, it's so important to ask for a blessed ending. Because the devil will come at us on our last moments. And we know this by, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and when he was dying, what happened? The shaitan will work on you the hardest on your last minutes, because he wants you to turn. And this is why it's not over until your soul is taken. Then, inshallah, you've made it. Till then, don't get too relaxed. Don't get too cocky. Don't get too complacent. We haven't made it. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, some of us wake up as believers, and then at night we're disbelievers, and others sleep as disbelievers and wake up as believers. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the turner of the hearts. So it's very, very important, my brothers and sisters. Don't get too relaxed. Don't think I've made it or you've done too much. Because everything we do, including our prayers and standing up in our prayers and our fajr and all the sadaqah and everything, is nothing on the scale for our heart beating 137,000 times a day. Our heart is set to beat 137,000 times a day. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that you've got to keep on doing something to your heart to keep it beating, how would you sleep? How would you pray? How would you eat? How would you work? Allah's given us that simple blessing of just the heart beating by itself, let alone the camera of the eyes. They still can't make a camera stronger than these eyes. The nose, the scent, all this stuff, blessings. So the only thing that will get us into paradise, my brothers and sisters, is the mercy of Allah. Without the mercy of Allah, we will not smell paradise. Therefore, we need to be merciful to each other. Because I'm telling you, the regret we see at funerals by people, the one who didn't speak to his brother or sister or mum or dad, and then they're standing at the gravesite asking for forgiveness, it's a very sad situation. Don't let it get to that point. That point, there's no return. Don't short any of your brothers and sisters. Don't oppress your brothers and sisters, because all that on the day of judgment, they're going to come back for it. The Prophet ﷺ told us even the goat who hits another goat on the day of judgment gets his recompense and turns to dust. So you short your brother, you say a wrong word to your brother. Today, everyone runs. Why do they run for? Because they're worried about what rights they didn't give to the other person. Because on that day, my brothers and sisters, the only currency is your deeds, and they'll be taken off you. And you don't want to be in that situation when you're standing on the bridge, the qantara, the bridge where people have to fix their problems before they go into paradise, because you have nothing else to pay with except your deeds. And once you run out of deeds, you become bankrupt. And that's who the Prophet ﷺ said is the muflis. The bankrupt is not the one with no money, the one who's done all this good in the world, but on the day of judgment it turns to dust because he wasted it talking about people, slandering people, backbiting people, not giving people their haqq, oppressing people, all these nasty things. My brothers and sisters, it's better to remain silent than to talk if that talk has no goodness in it. I'm going to wrap it up here for you because I won't shut up. Anyone got questions? We'll take some questions, inshallah. Any questions from the brothers or whoever's in the room? Isaac. Yeah. Well, subhanAllah, it's a good question because I remember I did two young boys who died about a year and a half ago. They died, the car exploded, basically. So they were fully burnt. And, you know, my job, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted from me and my intention that I have to give that right to that person, because I always say to myself, maybe on the day of judgment, that person says to Allah, he didn't give me my full right. So I always question myself with this. So I do the best I can. Those brothers that were fully burnt, I used about 30 towels. I wet them and I just, msahat, you know, just dabbed them, threw the towel away because it was all black. And I made sure their whole body got a bit of water on it. And I felt, to me, that I gave them what I can. I could have quite easily got the rock and done tayammum on them. Hand, face, done. And during COVID, that's what they were doing. They were using the rock. Now when I get someone with COVID, it says COVID, 2 bags, COVID sticker, orange sticker. Bala COVID wal, we still wash them. Because I believe when you die, everything dies in you. So I still wash them. And Allah will protect us, inshallah. But decomposing, if it's very, 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 I mean, the brother will tell you here, we had a brother not long ago who, they found him dead in his unit because his kids don't talk to him. He'd been 6 weeks in front of a heater. He had exploded. His stomach had exploded. And there was no one there except me and the brother to wash him. And brother, if I tell you, there was maggots coming out of him. We'll clean the maggots out of his mouth and nose, but we still washed him. Because I wanted him to go back to Allah as clean as possible as we can. And this is why I keep saying the same thing, brothers and sisters. Ask for a blessed ending, because the blessed ending is only going to come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Drowned? Yeah, we get drowned people. I had a brother last year who, during the Christmas break, he was on a picnic, and subhanallah, his son, maybe 5 years old, was kicking a soccer ball, and it went into the pond where they were, and his relatives were standing, so the father went to get the ball. He walked in, the water was like, you know, up to here. He's walking to get the ball, and he just went down and disappeared. 30-something years old. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took him to his place of death. That ball was his place of death. Angel of death was waiting for him there. And subhanAllah, you say to yourself, wow, they got him out of the water, and the body, what happens when water goes in it, it goes blue. It looks like you got seaweed in you. Like we've had people that have drowned in the ocean and seaweed comes out of them. They've been in the surf and that. You just clean it, brother. You got to do what you got to do. You still wash. Alhamdulillah. Allah barik feek. Did you put like? Did you put a like on it? Did you press the like button? Okay, good. Alhamdulillah. Allah barik feek. Hello, brothers and sisters. You know, like the young brother here was telling us, like he saw a video on TikTok that I put up. You know, the thing in this world we're living in, the message you send, the information you relate to someone can never be taken back. It'll be in your book of deeds. And you have to be very careful what you share on your phones. Someone may send you something and you think it's funny, so you forward it. On the day of judgment, that could be a witness against you. Think very, very, very thoughtfully. What you're going to send now, and you died in the next minute, will that be okay for you in the grave? And believe me, 99% of things you're going to say or forward or pass on, you'll change your mind, because we don't know what we're going to be accountable for. As you know, Umar ibn Khattab said, radiyallahu anhu, judge yourselves before we are judged. So judge yourselves. Judge yourselves before you do anything. So, yeah. All right, look, you know, subhanAllah, in Islam, alhamdulillah, the respect our religion has, the women, they mourn. You know, someone loses their husband, like today, the lady lost her husband, young guy. She's there crying. Everyone has feelings. We're humans. Even the Prophet ﷺ, his eyes teared when he was burying his son. And the Sahaba said, you told us not to cry. He said, "La'aynu tadma wa qalbu yasan." You know, the eyes tear and the heart hurts. We're humans. With women, they get washed by women. They get shrouded, but the men carry them. But the women still pray for them. The women can come to their janazah when they get washed, like at the mosque and that. The only difference we have is when we go to the cemetery, it's forbidden for the women to follow the janazah. So when the men walk, the women should be walking behind them, following the deceased. They come later. So once that dirt is backfilled on the grave, the men move back, then the women can come forward. There's nothing wrong with the women visiting the cemetery, visiting the graves, and all that stuff. So I don't know where people get this wrong information that Islam is oppressive. The women are there. They all cry. They're all there. I mean, everyone is human these days. But the only thing is that part, because in Islam, we don't have mixing. You can't have the women jump in the front of the grave and the men are all standing there, and we're not, you know, there's no mahrams there. It's not our religion to do this. So we have respect in our religion. So, all right, so last week, I know you might have seen one of the videos, me and brother Fred Nagy visited a lady in Auburn Hospital, a revert sister. She's been revert for 19 years. And she's on palliative care, she's dying. And she wanted to meet us. So brother Fred Haram, he bought her a camel burger. She always wanted to try a camel burger. And she wanted to meet the undertaker guy, so I went there. So subhanAllah, we walked into the Auburn Hospital, and I met this sister, and I said to her, I'm here, like, you want to say something to me? She said to me, I have no family. I have one son, 16, and my mum who's not Muslim. She said to me, I want to know what happens when I die. This is exactly what she said. And I told her the process. If you were to die, we'll come pick you up. You'll be dignified, blah, blah, blah. The next day, after we left and that, the next day she wrote a letter. And she said, when I die, I want you, about me, and the other brother, Fred, to bury her. And she has no one. So we have to bury her if we're still alive. And I actually, subhanAllah, I said to her, she said, I got my grave ready. I said, where at? She said, in DY. I said, sister, it's not an Islamic cemetery there. And I told her the hadith about burying our Muslims with Muslims. He said, I didn't know this. Don't worry about D-Way. Bury me with the Muslims. So sometimes, just giving wisdom to people that don't know, a bit of knowledge, it helps. Because if she was to die and nobody told her this, she'll be buried in a place that is a non-Muslim place. Yeah. Women wash. My auntie actually washes them. Yeah. SubhanAllah, there's a hadith about that where it said that you should inform your family that if you were to pass away, don't cry and wail over me, okay, and bury me quickly. We all should have these plans in place, because if you were to die tomorrow, someone needs to step up. Someone needs to take care of business. You can't all. You know how many brothers die, or people die, and the family knows nothing, and the deceased gets taken to the coroner. And we don't find out till 5 days later because they didn't know what to do. They're waiting for the police to ring him. The police will never ring you. He's gone on his 5-day roster off. He's not going to ring you. You got to chase it. And someone in the family needs to be switched on and call, and we were there to help you. We're always there to inform everyone. You need to chase the deceased. So you need to know when someone dies how to straight away react. Not sit there like a stunned mullet, because then you're going to make it harder for the deceased to get buried, and you're going to delay him. So, subhanAllah, you need to inform your family members not to wail and cry and that. But they do it. Some do it. And when that happens, like, I think it was yesterday, they went like when we took the body out, the ladies went crazy. Straight away, we covered the body and took it up to the mosque. That's it, done. Because we need to quickly eliminate that problem. Because you can't control these people. It's an emotional place. It's emotional time. People are going crazy. You can't sit there and say it, you can't sit there and give them the rules and that. They're not going to listen. So you cover the body and you just move it out of sight straight away. And that's how you dignify the deceased. Yeah. Look, subhanAllah, I love what I do. It's the biggest blessing I've ever done, because I look at it as I've divorced this world. This world's an illusion. Everything in this world is illusion. If you were to die today, everything that you thought is important yesterday or tomorrow is not important anymore. What's important is your actions and your deeds. So why don't we make our actions and our righteous deeds the most beloved thing to us? Not our homes, not our kids, not our cars, but our actions is our deeds, and our good deeds should be the most beloved thing to us. And I think, at 17, I used to pick up the dead people. I remember when I was 17 and I got my P plates, I drove past the cemetery once and I said, I want to go see what's in here. And I turned left and I went to Rookwood Cemetery. And back then we were in the old section still. And I started walking around, pondering, reading names. This guy's 30, this guy's 80, this guy's 5. And I started to think in my head, what is this place? I've never been to a cemetery. We didn't used to think of this stuff. And I started to ponder myself, like, what's our purpose on this life? And subhanAllah, 1 year later, I was digging in the cemetery. And I spent 15 years digging graves and burying people. But even then, my heart wasn't connected the way it connects now, washing and what I do, because alhamdulillah, Allah gave us maturity. He gave us a bit of wisdom. He gave us something to ponder about. So now when I wash a deceased, like I think to myself, subhanAllah, I've washed people who were at a funeral month or two before. And I remember them. I remember them standing there at a funeral, and today they're in that funeral. They're the funeral. And it makes you ponder. The most people don't see this every day. We go to our work or we go to whatever we do. We're not seeing that side of it. This is the reality side. This is why, my brothers and sisters, the Prophet ﷺ said, visit the cemeteries. Go to the cemetery, take your kids, because the cemetery does two things to you. It makes you give dua, do prayers for the ones that everyone's forgotten, and remember yourself where you're going. Because the beauty that the Prophet ﷺ told us, what remembering death a lot does to the human. The first thing it does, the one who remembers death all the time, he quickly repents when he does wrong. We all do wrong. None of us here are perfect. We're humans. We're made to do wrong. So the one who remembers death a lot, he does wrong, he repents straight away. Astaghfirullah. The second thing is, he doesn't attach himself to the world. He doesn't make this world, if I don't get this, it's the end of the world. And the third thing is, he energizes himself. He doesn't become lazy when it comes to worship. When the prayer's on, he does it. He drives to the mosque. He does all this because when does a shaitan come to you? Always. At the time of a good deed. It's all right, man, you've done enough today. Khalas, just pray at home, Isha. You don't need to go. But when you fight the shaitan and you come and pray it here, you leave here laughing. You feel good. Allah's giving you this blessing with your time. And you're protected to the morning. Shaitan doesn't want this for us. So my brothers and sisters, it's so important to fight these inner, the nafas, the soul. The soul is, the Quran says, Yas'alunaka 'anir ruh. Oh Muhammad, oh Prophet Allah, they're going to ask you about the soul. Say it is from the knowledge of Allah. We know nothing about the soul. They will never create a soul. They're going to do everything they can. They're now freezing bodies because they think they're going to bring them back to life. They will never create a soul. They've been challenged by Allah. They can never create a soul. This is Allah's work. Therefore, the soul is so sacred that it will never die. It will go back to its creator. And that's why we have to keep it pure. Because, our bodies are loaned to us. Yeah? You go overseas and you give me your car. Akhi Ahmad, can you just look after the car, keep it in the garage? And you come back and you find your car stripped or smashed or changed color. You're going to go, you didn't look after the car for me. So our bodies are loaned to us. Our bodies are loaned to us. This is why we have to be equal and balanced in everything we do. Our prayer, our health, our family, all needs balance. That's how our religion is, subhanAllah. Yes, brother. Brother, the Quran is for the living, not for the dead. Dua, subhanAllah, we're taught when we bury our dead, once you bury them, one of the Sahabas, I forgot the name now, he said, once I'm buried, turn to the Kaaba and make dua for me for as long as it takes to slaughter and give away the meat of a camel. In those days, they do it in about 25 minutes. So this is what you do. You stand there and you make dua for that deceased. This is all that's going to benefit them. These Qur'ans they're putting now in the cemeteries on solar power, $1,200. What a waste of money. Should have gone and fed orphans with it. Because the Quran is for the living. It's for us. The only thing is recommended is to read Surah Yasin on the one dying. Not dead yet. Why? Because Surah Yasin talks about the hereafter and the day of resurrection and the Yawm al-Qiyamah. So it's a good. And another thing too is recommended when someone's dying is the most pious people in the family to stay with him and to guide him in the sense of do talqeen with him. Keep reminding him, Allah Rabbi. Do that with him because all that is good for him as he's dying. Not after he's dead. After he's dead, he's not going to talk anymore. So these are things we can all do and we all should practice. Sadaqah? Yeah, of course. I tell everyone, while you're alive, do your sadaqah. Because, I see it all the time. People that are rich, they die, they're lucky to put 5% of your money towards a sadaqah for you. They hold back. But when you're alive, you got control of that. You do it when you're alive. Because only 3 things benefit the deceased in the grave. A righteous child that keeps making dua for him. Knowledge of benefit, beneficial ilman yanfa'. You've given knowledge passed on knowledge that is beneficial. And a sadaqah jariyatun, an ongoing charity. They're the only 3 things that will elevate your ranks in the grave. I don't care if you built the whole of Granville. I don't care if you own 50 factories. None of them are going to benefit you. What's going to benefit you? Those simple 3 things. SubhanAllah. This is how beautiful our religion is. Islam is not built on status of what you have materialistically. It's built with your iman, how strong that faith is. And that all gets tested and out on the day you pass away. This is what determines how strong your iman is. And the only way you're going to be like that is if you live it every day. Because every single one of us here, my brothers and sisters, if today you were to meet the angel of death and he ain't going to give you permission, you're not a prophet, he's going to take your soul. Are you ready to leave? We can't even leave the house without 10 things. Oh, phone, this, that. Do I have enough battery? Have I got my wallet? Have I got my key card? How are you going to live when the angel of death comes? And he doesn't care about that. How are you going to live with your deeds? Because most people, they hate to go, humans, they hate to go from what they've destroyed, from what they've built to what they destroyed. Us humans, we built the world. We got everything nice, comfortable, ensuite, this, whatever. But we haven't built nothing for the hereafter. But the true believer builds his hereafter. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-mawtu tuhfatun lil-mu'min. Death is a prize for the believer. Why is it a prize? You're a student, you've been studying for 4 or 5 years, you do your exams, I want my prize. I want to see what I got. And the believer, 60, 70, 80 years of making wudu, getting up for Fajr, there's no days off for Fajr. Fajr is 7 days a week. Some parts of the year it's very early, some parts it gets a bit later. The water's cold, you get old, arthritis, you can't bend, you can't do your legs. It's a challenge. You want your prize. I've been praying for 70 years. I want to see my prize. This is why death is a prize for the believer. He waits it. Yeah. You got to try to reconcile. Make intention. Make intention. Allah knows what's in your heart. I don't know what's in your heart. If you've tried to contact them, find them, go on Facebook, put their name in, you find the world now. If you find them, send a message. Even if 10 people come up with that name, send a message, brother, forgive me if I ever hurt you in any way. That's it. You've tried. Allah looks at what we do in intention. You know, because look at, if you're going to do a bad deed and you change your mind, Allah's going to judge you on not doing the deed, on changing your mind on the good. So it's all about the intention. Well, have you heard a lot of people down here? What are you hiding? Yeah. That's why, you know, you see people before they go Hajj and that, you see all the messages come out. Brother, if I wronged you, forgive me, this. And there are 2 reasons. He's spending 25 grand to go to the Hajj. He wants to make sure it's accepted. All right? And the second thing is, he might legitimately go, you know what, I want to tawb. But you need to do tawbah al-nasuha. You need to do a proper, honest tawbah. You know? Because, you know, subhanAllah, Iman, it's like a pilot in an aeroplane. So I used to fly planes. And subhanAllah, when I used to take off, all the landmarks were right in front of you. You see them. The higher you got, the altitude went higher, the smaller everything became. And your Iman is the same. The higher your Iman goes in this world, the less significant everything becomes around you. You look at most of my shaykh, they don't answer their phones, right? Everyone goes, they don't answer their phones. Because the phone is a hindrance. Because they detach. How are you gonna detach from the world if you're constantly involved in the world? And this is how you learn, man, slowly, step by step. And you got to come up with a plan that's sustainable. Not something go cold turkey and then you go crazy. You need something that works in your life. Because Allah's going to judge you for your intention, you know. You know how many brothers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we've buried that changed their life around, bro. They've done 20 years of jail. They get out of jail and they go on the straight path and 1, 2, 3 months later they die. And you don't hear about the 20 years of jail. You hear about the last 3, 4 months. They became the mu'adhin at the mosque. They set up everything in Ramadan. They were there first. Allah opened their hearts and He took them when Allah wanted them. This is a blessed ending. It's not about how you start. Brothers and sisters, don't ever think of the past. Think of the present and look to the future. It's not about how we started. We all start wrong. We've all done wrong. It's how we're going to finish. Because you make istighfar now, brother, inshallah ya Rabb, it's accepted and that's it. It's not about what you did in the past. What happened in the past, Allah has the ability to pardon us. You know, al-afu. Al-afu means clean slate. Doesn't even want to be mentioned. It's not going to be mentioned. Didn't even exist. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do that for us. Oh, so the eyes follow the soul. So what happens is, akhi, is everyone has a date with death. Everyone has a death date. So my death date, 19th of November, is the day I die. The day that comes, the angels prepare your shroud and the perfume, and they will come down to the location where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set for you for your death. Allah will make a means for you to go there. And once that happens and your soul is taken out, your soul is taken up to the 7th heaven. And every heaven, angels are following your janazah. These angels are following your soul. They stop. The next ones take over and over. And they call you by your best names. They call you by your best names, Al-Amin, you're the honest one, you're the Siddeeq, you're this, you're that, you're whatever. Right up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, bring it back to the earth, because from it I created them. To it they shall return, and from it they will be resurrected. And the soul is taken back down. And you got to understand, this is all the unseen. We measure time in seconds and minutes. And Allah, it doesn't work like this. The scholars say that by the time your soul goes up and down and that, and you're asked the questions, you're already in the grave. You can't fathom the thought of up, down, this. We don't have that ability in our mind. It's Allahu Alam, it gets done. We've been told by the Prophet, and that's how it happens. Because you got to remember, death, the closest you can think about death is sleep. Because sleep is the minor death. Because what did the Prophet ﷺ teach us when you wake up? Alhamdulillah alladhi ahyana ba'da ma amatana wa ilayhi nushur. Correct? All praise to Allah, the one who gave us life after we were dead, and to Allah we shall return. That's the dua in the morning, right? The Prophet say. What's it mean? It means we were dead when we were sleeping. Who protected you when you were sleeping? Who stopped the jinn? The jinn? Who stopped them hurting you when you were sleeping? Who stopped anything falling down on you when you were sleeping? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected you. And Allah is the one who ordains your soul to return or not to return. Because Allah says, some of you, I take your soul when you are sleeping. Others, I return it. So when you sleep, someone, like your mum will go in the room and look at you and you're sleeping. You look like you're at peace. You're sleeping. But your soul could be Allah alam where. Allah alam where your soul is traveling, what it's feeling, what it's gone through. And the death is very similar to this. We see the body dead. The body's laying there in front of us. But where's the soul? The soul is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why we can't sit there and try to think too deep about these little things. What we've got to think more deep about is how we're going to prepare to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, bro. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer. Allahu Alam. Yeah, Hajj. So, yeah. Yeah. Yes. So make the dua, Assalamu alaikum ya ahl al-diyar min al-muslimin wal-mu'minin wa Allahumma nahna lahiqun. Allahumma afina wa afi anna. Because it's said that they hear. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, when you get buried and people leave, you will hear the last footsteps of the person leaving the cemetery. So if a Prophet said that, we can only say to ourselves, Allahu Alam. We must hear, because you're going to hear the punishment, you're going to feel the punishment. So, subhanallah, it's just another, this world, boys, this world, wallah, it's temporary, man. It's this 20, 30, 40, 50 years you live. The first 20 you're struggling, the next 30 you're working, the last 20 you're sick. What is this world? It's short, it's quick. Every single person at that cemetery, the other day, I saw a grave, 108 years old, 17 years old, next to each other. He was 90-something years old when this guy was born. 90-something, and he should have been dead. This guy's going to outlive him. They died a day apart. Allahu Akbar. The age is in the control of Allah. We're not promised to make it to old age. And if we do make it to what Ummah Muhammad is expected, 60 to 70, most of us are over it. We're 2/3. You know what 2/3 is? It means you've gone up the hill and you've come down a bit. You're almost down. The Prophet Saleh, may Allah be pleased with him, when the angel of death came to take his soul, he said to the angel of death, I've only lived for 124 years. He said to him, if I tell you there's going to be a ummah, they're going to live between 60 to 70. And he said, and which ummah? He said, Ummah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then Nabi Salih said to the angel of death, if I was from the ummah of Muhammad, I would build my house on the doorstep of the grave. That's how quick it will go. That's how quick he'll go. 124 years, and he says 60 to 70. Wow, that's like a glimpse of, oh, you're dead. And none of us, these days, the average death now in their 40s and 50s. إلا ما رحمه الله سبحان الله. Look, we have to go by what the Prophet, وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. We take from what the Prophet taught us and what we did. The Prophet never recited Quran on deceased. He recited Quran on the living, in prayers and that, because Quran is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking to us. With the deceased, it's dua, because right now, the deceased is cut off from the world. He's no longer part of the world now. He's classed as the other side. He's classed as a sabiqun, and we are the lahiqun. They're the speedsters, we're the followers. So the only thing that can benefit them is mercy and forgiveness. And the only ones who can ask for that now is the living on behalf of them. But you can do sadaqah for them. You can do everything. You can do your hajj on their behalf. There's a lot of things that you can keep on raising their ranks. But in general to Quran, the Quran came down for us to ponder, to hear the stories, to make sense of how to live. The dead don't live. They're not part of the world anymore. That's the why, subhanAllah, the ayah in the Quran where it says, وَتَفَّتِ السَّاقُ بِالسَّاقِ, when the shin is put over the other shin. This is not a physical meaning. This is a literal meaning. Meaning now, you cannot go to do good deeds anymore. Now, you cannot put that hijab on anymore. Now, you cannot fast those days that you were supposed to fast. Now, you cannot go to the prayer. You're cut off from doing good deeds. And that's what it refers to, subhanAllah. Yeah. Look, it's the life of the barzakh, We don't know much of it. We only know what the Prophet taught us. In other words, so the hadith says, when the deceased passes on and he enters the barzakh, this is the believer, all right? We're talking about a believing soul here. The people of the barzakh will come to him and they will ask, how is, for example, such and such? And he'll say he's already passed on, meaning he's not in barzakh. And they'll feel upset because that person passed on before him, but he didn't make it to barzakh. He went to Illiyun, he went to the bad side. And then people will come around him in the sense of, how is such and such? How is the people of the world? How is, just like when you travel and people ask you, how is everyone on that side? Until one person says, leave him. He's come from the claustrophobia of the world. In other words, it's claustrophobic. This world was described as claustrophobic because you got to understand that we are still, the first slip of our ticket is just torn off because we came into this earth. We still got a lot of stuff to go. And Allah Alam, every single one of us here has something Allah has planned for us. Some of us might get a bad sickness. Some of us might be drop dead. Some of us might lose half our body. Allah has a plan for every single one of us. And that plan is going to be the beginning of this life to enter the next life. In other words, the one who gets sick and suffers and suffers and suffers and then goes through death, then goes through the grave and goes through all that, then he's tired. He's been through a lot. Because once you're in barzakh, it was described by the Prophet ﷺ that the time is between Dahr and Asr, that 3.5 hours that you will feel, that's all it is, before we open our eyes again and everybody is at the Day of Judgment. So don't count, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the one day for Allah is like 50,000 years that we count. So don't even count time. There's nothing called time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Time only exists for us, subhanAllah. So barzakh is another, some people, a lot of people when they die, people see them in their dreams. There's a sign of the souls, subhanAllah. How the souls exit and go and visit each other. Because a lot of people will tell you, I saw my mum, I saw my dad in my dream. They were happy, they were wearing white, they were in Makkah. Even, I remember a young brother, a last story, 17-year-old, went to Punch Bowl Boys. And subhanAllah, he had a sister that was sick, and his dad was sick. And his mum had passed away, like recently, and his grandmother had passed away just before her. And I saw him, it was that Mother's Day, they call Mother's Day, I was at the cemetery. And I saw him standing at his mum's grave and his grandmother's grave. And I remember this kid because he used to wear a sunnah hat. He was an Indonesian boy and he was a very big boy. And I saw him from the corner of my eye. And he stood there at the grave on that Sunday. On Monday, he went to school and he said to his two friends, and they told me this themselves. He said, I had a beautiful dream at night. I saw my mum and my grandmother and me doing tawaf in Makkah. His grandmother and mum are dead. That he was doing tawaf with them. That day, at lunchtime, he was playing basketball. He had a heart attack and died. Subhanallah. Yani, I don't even want to continue anymore. What does that tell you? Allah showed him a sign. Because dreams are 1/40th nubuwwah, if they're pure and they're right. So he saw something that, subhanallah, that he ended up following them. And subhanAllah, we buried him right next to his mother. And I think to myself, Allahu Akbar, if you do not believe in the power of Allah, you have issues. Subhanallah. There's a lot of stories, brothers. Wallah, there's a lot of stories I can tell you about people who have met their last day. Some of them you'll think they're coincidence, but there's nothing called coincidence in Islam. There's nothing called, my brothers and sisters, being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Don't ever say that. He was at the right place at the right time. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you that the angel of death will be there for you at the location where your death is deemed. A good friend of mine, school friend, died a couple of months ago. Subhanallah, he was feeling a bit depressed in life. So his brother-in-law took him on a cruise ship for 3 days. And he sent us a photo of him having dinner that night on the cruise ship. That night he didn't wake up. He died on the cruise ship. And we picked him up from the cruise ship in a body bag, and subhanAllah, we buried him and everything. And I thought to myself, subhanAllah, if I said to that brother Muhammad, if I told him 12 months ago, you're going to die out in the middle of the ocean at night, he's going to laugh at me. He's going to, how am I going to die there, man? I'm in Greenacre. How am I going to end up in the middle of the ocean out near Queensland somewhere? Allah made a way for it to happen. The angel of death was waiting for him out there and brought him to his death. My brothers and sisters, do not underestimate anything, and do not think that, subhanAllah, that you're going to run away from death. Because when your time is up, your time is going to be up. Just remember one thing, but make sure you're ready. As much as you think we're ready, we're not going to be ready. So keep on being accountable for yourselves, inshallah. All the kids have the questions. Yeah, bro. No. So once it goes to the coroner, they don't care if you're the son of the Prime Minister. There's no... You can object to an autopsy. So what they'll say to you then is, we'll do a scan, so non-invasive. They scan you. If they find the cause of death, okay. If they don't, they're going to open you up. If you object to it, they'll tell you go do a court order. That could take weeks. And they leave the body. They leave the bodies in there for up to 12 months. You know, 2 years ago, I had a brother. Alhamdulillah, we have a Muslim brother working in the coroner. And they were told to do an audit, like stock in the coroner. Just like a business. Because that coroner holds up to 300 bodies. So they went through all the bodies that are in there. And he rang me, he said, I have a brother here, he's African, he's Muslim. He's been here nearly 12 months. No one's claimed him. And what they do after 12 months is they cremate him. He goes, okay, yeah, we'll bury him. SubhanAllah. When I got him, he was still exactly the way he died. Wallah, he was exactly the way he died, SubhanAllah. Allahu Akbar. I'll never forget that brother, man. 1 year, and he got discovered by another Muslim that's working there. Allah gave that Muslim brother a job there to get him out of there. Wallah, look at these are miracles, bro, miracles. Inshallah. The questions won't finish. This kid's got heaps of questions, yeah. SubhanAllah, see, that's kind of truth in there. Brothers, SubhanAllah, a couple of months ago, look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees things. Indonesian brother lives out near Kuji. He ordered a washing machine from one of those good guys or whatever. The day the washing machine was getting delivered, the driver rang him and said, look, the offsider, he's not in today, so I can't deliver it. I'll change the date. He goes, no, brother, I'll help you. It's all good. SubhanAllah, look at that. He goes, are you sure? He goes, yeah, all good. The guy came, they put the washing machine on the trolley, and he was walking backwards, just holding it on the stairs. He had thongs on. His thongs slipped. He fell back, hit his head, and died. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deemed that to happen on that day, decreed it. Why? Because that was his date of death. He could have said, yeah, brother, don't worry. Come when you got a worker. No. He insisted on him helping because Allah had ordained him to die at that place, that location, that time. SubhanAllah. I'll never forget. These are amazing things, man. Well, brothers, we're going to end it there because it's been a long day. May Allah reward you all. May Allah bless you all. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make the best day be the day we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.